Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Great. So you guys seem to hear me, and I seem to hear you. That sounds good. Good, promising start. Hi, everyone. Nice to see so many of you live. Maybe a few new faces. Welcome for people who are joining the Geometry Cafe, even if it's live or if it's with a recording. Feel free to interrupt at any time. We'll keep the mics turned off generally so we don't have too much background noises, but feel free to reactivate them to ask questions or make comments or anything. And just figuring out there's new settings on the Zoom thing, so making my way around the windows. Right, so yes, don't hesitate to interrupt if needed, or just to make a comment. We have a little bit of an ambitious plan for today, but it's going to be fun, I think. And I'm a little bit tired, so bear with me, but I think it'll be all right. How is everyone? Have you had a nice summer? Did you do some geometry stuff?
Yeah, it's been good. Last couple weeks have been great.
Sounds good. You can you can use the chat as well. Some people have written some things already. Hi Don from Scotland.
September is going to be a big geometry month for me between you and Stephanie and Clarissa. I've signed up for.
For everything. Yeah, there are times like this. When I saw that Clarissa was doing a 6 weeks course, I was like, oh my God. You're a hard one to compete with. But yeah, well, I hope you enjoy all of them. I'm sure it's going to be good. um You too. Okay, cool. I cannot see all of you as usual. One day I'll get another screen. Ah, hi, New Mexico. Nice. Okay, yes, it's going to be a big geometry season. But it's been nice to have August. Well, it was not off really. I've been working out designs for, courses coming in the fall. But but it's been nice to not have teaching happening in August and be on my own timing a little bit, and to be able to rest somewhat and be in the countryside with family, which was nice. Okay, so the ambitious plan for today is that a few sessions ago, for those who were there or who have seen the recordings, we started some analysis of some small motifs, so I could show you how I go about analyzing a pattern. And this one, so I have not in, I should have put it in the mail, I forgot, but I'm gonna put it in the chat here, so if you want to open it on your computer, you can. Here, so that's the little image we had looked at, but we had looked at it quite briefly, so maybe some of you went and pursued the fact of finding analyzing it more and making a drawing of it, but I hadn't, and I did it a few days ago, and I thought it's a nice little pattern with some easy things and some less easy things, but I thought it was quite nice. So we're going to do that today on a version that doesn't have any thickness to the line, because that would get us a bit too far. Just, basic version for this one. But doing all the little shapes in there. So that's my plan. Right, and for format, paper. It's doable on an A4, kind of like that. Like the smallest circles would be these ones here. So it's doable on the A4 if you're kind of used working that kind of small-ish scales, not too small, but a little bit. But I'm going to draw it on A3, and maybe I recommend something a bit more like that, so you are more comfortable with finding your tangents and everything. So yeah, let's switch the camera thing. It's been only a month, but I have to find my things again of how to film and everything. Okay, so where is it? It's here, I think. Keep my little face in there. I might take it out if it's on the way of the drawing, but no, not what I wanted to do. This, but this. Okay. Here, so I'm going to start with a vertical line, and I'm not going to go too much over explaining the analysis of it, like how do I get there, because we've done that in a previous session, and you can watch the recording again if you want. And no, I'm not going to use this. Let's use this for the basic line. And I did buy a new gray pen. Ah, yes, that must be this one. But it's a four-fold window, so if we just have a quick look at it still before starting to draw, right there. So it's four tangent circles. So if this is your first time of Gothic geometry because you've just joined the cafe, don't worry about it too much. I mean, don't overstress it. Take your time. There's some things that you get used to the more you draw Gothic stuff. So tangent circles means that they're just touching each other, like here, the circles, and then they're not overlapping. And it's a key element of Gothic things, that things are tangent. And we're going to use that more in other parts of the drawing. So, but basically we have those four tangent circles, and then things happen within them. And here you can see that the axis is not vertical and is not horizontal. And I don't know why that choice was made, but that's how it is. We are, for the sake of things being easy for us, we are going to make it vertical. So yeah, and I've chosen the vertical to be, I think you can see the mouse, but to be this line here. So we're going to have the four circles oriented kind of horizontally. You'll see. So from here, I'm going to start with a vertical line, and like I usually do, I'm going to do mine on the side of my paper. That can leave you some space for the notes if you want to take notes on the side, and to find the right measure. Whatever your paper is, you just measure the short length. Mine is almost 30 centimeters, so I'm going to use 15 centimeters from the left hand side and mark up and down to draw my vertical line. Like that. And so I'll be able to fit my circle in this, and then you can mark the center of that line. So more or less 15, so it should be like 14.89 something, if you're using an A3 European format. And then we're going to place the circle on that, and it's going to be our biggest circle. So you can go as big as you like. We just need enough room to put what would be the square around it. We're not going to like draw really the square, but we're going to draw the corners at least. And I'm going to use a radius of, let's see, 11 centimeters ish. So 11 centimeters roughly from the center we've marked. Just, you know, have the circle fitting comfortably on the page. Maybe there's a bit too much light, no? Not sure if you can see my page. Let's make some adjustments. No, no. Ah, yeah, that's okay. Right. So we have a circle on a vertical line, and because this is a fourfold design, we want to divide this further and add in a perpendicular line. And if you're getting used to that by now, my way of finding a perpendicular line usually is to open my compass to approximately 3/4 of my diameter, so 1 radius and a half. And I use that. It's a random measure, but what matters is that I'm using the same measure from down here and up there to get those little arcs outside of my circle on either side. So I want to get those intersections there. And if you use exactly the same measure from up and down, then you'll get something that gives you a nice perpendicular horizontal line. And you can use that to draw that perpendicular line. And so circle on the vertical, then we find a perpendicular. So I'm just going to reply in French to the question, but donc la perpendiculaire, c'est on prend une mesure approximative de 1 rayon et demi et on utilise ça pour faire les croix à l'extérieur en utilisant exactement la même mesure en haut et en bas, enfin depuis l'intersection en bas et l'intersection en haut. And after that, you go back to the radius of the circle. So we go back to taking exactly the radius of our initial circle, putting the compass back in the center. And we're going to draw what would be the corners of a square around the circle. We don't need the square, but we need those exact corners. And this time also, I'm not going to just make the little arc. Oh, you can't, there's too much light here. Hang on. Light is always so hard to... No, it's not what I should change. Okay, so I don't want just a little, let's do it here, little part like this. I want to carry on this until it hits the circle as well. And from the 4 intersections with the horizontals and the verticals, we want to do the same thing and add enough that we will find the corner of the square, but also going all the way until you cut the circle. So we did that using the radius of the circle from the 4 cardinal points for the 4 intersections on the circle, like this. And that's not what we are going to use it for, but what this does as well is that it divides your circle in 12. So it divides each quarter into 3 equal parts. So that's also a way to divide in 12. And we'll use those intersections later. But for now, we are going to first add in our diagonals. My ruler just doesn't quite reach the tips out there. So you could, if you have a longer ruler, or you could add closer intersections, or you can just link the intersection out there to the center. Just try and align as carefully as you can. And do it in 2 times like this. Usually I would rather have, it align in one go, but like this. And okay, so now we should have a circle divided in 8 parts. And so that's useful because when you have a 4-fold design, you need usually to divide in 8, so it's always double. But it's also useful because the corners of what would be the square, you could draw the square if you want. So if we were to line up the ruler from each of those intersections, you'll have a line that goes through your center as well, and that would form a square around your circle. And the corner of that square, so from the angle here of the square and the imaginary square and the circle, this distance is what helps me find the tangent circle. So I'm going to use a light blue for what is you know, kind of part of the final, more of the final drawing. So if you've then done tangent circles before, so the way we're going to do it here is that I'm placing the compass point here, so where the diagonal hits my circle, and I'm going to place the measure measure all the way to the corner out there, so our little intersection there, and mark where that falls on the diagonal. And before marking that sort of everywhere, we're going to check that this is actually a good measure for a nice tangent. So this is from here to here, giving you the center of your tangent circle. And this is also the radius for that same circle. So if now you are there and now you place the compass point on this intersection, and before drawing the whole thing, check that it's just going over your horizontal and vertical line, that it's nicely tangent, and this is where it needs to get it needs some getting used to adjust if needed. So if you're going over your lines, it means that your radius is a little bit too big and you need to move the compass point a little bit further, you know, closer to the circle, just a tiny bit sometimes, and readjust your radius and then try again until you have something that's nice and tangent. And that's if it's over the line, and if it doesn't touch the line, then it means your measure is too short, and it means you need to move the center slightly closer to the center of the circle. If that makes sense. So once you have a measure you're more or less happy with, tangenting is not easy, so don't worry if it's not exactly on the lines. You can draw your circle. And we'll reproduce the same thing in the four other quadrants on the four diagonals. So placing the compass with the same radius as here, placing the compass point on the circle there, where it's cut by the diagonal, and marking the diagonal in like that. And you can straight away now, because it's the same radius from out there and from the center, you can move your you can straight away go to trace your circle. So first you mark the center from the outside in, and then you can trace your circle, all with the same radius. Okay. Hopefully, so far so good. Okay, from there, we want to place the center of the four circles. You need the corners of the square, which would be the square out there. And it's the measure from this intersection out there to the circle, and you mark it inside this measure. Yeah. And so that's our image. We have the main circles now, and we are next going to place those four other circles that are sort of opened in the shape of a petal, like that. And these are surprisingly easy to to place. We're just going to use one of the main square that we could fit in the circle. So I'm going to show you to place those. Where is it? Here. Okay. And yeah, so I'm going to draw a big square that links all the four cardinal points, so all the intersections from the vertical and horizontal with a circle, and placing what we call a dynamic square, so a square orientated on its point. And you can draw the full line. Do we need? You don't need the full line, but you need at least to cut the circle here in case you want to be more minimal. But let's just draw the full square. And once you get that square, where the sides of the square are cut by the diagonal, this is where your centers are going to be for the new circle, and your radius is going to be to the outer circle here on the diagonal. So this is your radius, and you can trace the circle. So we trace it in full. The petal shape will happen later. So this is why this blue, pale blue, is not the final outline. It's just the sort of the shapes that are making the final outline. Oops. Oops. Um, okay. And the nice thing with that is that when we did the sides of our square, here we know, because of geometry and math, that this crosses the diagonal at a right angle. So, and because it goes through the center of that smaller circle, the diagonal and the side of the square here are cutting the smaller circles in four equal parts. Okay, so that's going to be useful when we want to place the four smaller circles onto that. We'll come to that a little bit later. First, I want to place the curves that are going to make what we call the mouchette shapes. So it's going to be a curve that comes out of this circle here and meets the diagonal. So if I show you on the main drawing, no, here, it's this curve we want to find, and we're going to it's going to be a full circle. So this curve, sorry, you can't see my mouse here, I think. So here, this curve on this side, someone tell me if you cannot see, because I cannot see the chat. So if you see the mouse, the curve here is the same circle as this curve on the other side here. So this is kind of a circle. And so we're going to find the center for those four circles that are going to be tangent to the other circles we've just drawn. I'll get there. Here. Okay. And to do that, we're going to do something a little bit weird, but that's going to work, hopefully. So, we are going to draw the other square, the other big square. So the one that links the diagonals where they cut the circle.
So what's she doing?
Does someone have a question?
Square. Drawing square.
I can hear someone. Is it you, Maureen?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Do you have a question?
No, I'm muttering to myself. I'll turn myself off.
Thanks. So the big square, but let me know if you do have a question. Okay, so we've just done this, or I've just done this square, the square from the diagonals here, and we're going to do two diminishing squares from that. So the diminishing squares is when we place another square within a square, which has a different orientation. So this square here is sort of flat on its base. It's not on the point, it's on a flat side. And so inside of the square, we're going to place another square, which is on its point. So this time, we linking the sides of the square we've just drawn, where they're cut by the horizontal and vertical, and we are drawing a new square. you could mark sort of the areas you're linking if you find it a little confusing before you start aligning. And so within this smallest square that I've just added, we're going to draw a new square again. So again, from the middle of the sides, this was a square on its point, and now it's going to be a square on a flat side again. Again, you mean the last one, we do like this. Okay, and once you have this last square, I'm hesitant to circle actually the corners because we're going to have something happening very close to the corner of that square later on here. There's going to be another, I should zoom in a bit. There's going to be another center sort of just outside here, so be careful to not sort of make too much of a mess here, but I'm going to sort of really highlight these. I'm going to use these 4 corners as centers, and I'm going to make big arcs that are going to help me find the centers for the circle I'm looking for. So it's a lot of steps. There are different ways of finding this, but this is one that seems to fit. But because it has a lot of steps and because it's a question of tangent circles, it might not be perfect. We probably will have to adjust. Yeah, don't worry too much. So corners of the smallest square here. So I'm on the down right corner. And this. And then my radius is not to the next corner, is actually to this here, which was the center of my big tangent circle there, okay? So this here is my radius. And with that radius, which should hit on the same center on the other end, I'm going to draw a big arc like that. So from the corner of the small square to the center of the tangent circle here, okay? One big arc. And then the same arc from the corners of the same, so the four corners of the small square, like that. Until you get those four curves. Let me know if I need to repeat that or if that works. I'm gonna mark the radius maybe so. Okay, and now our centers should be where those arcs, where they intersect with each other. So here. Sort of in between the four tangent circles. Don't confuse with the side of the square. I've done that. Just on the two curves intersecting here. And for the radius, so it's a tangent which should, you can find it normally, it should be close enough to where the curve cuts the smaller circle there, the inner circle. And check before you draw, this should tangent your diagonal. And you can draw the full circle if you want, but what we actually want is just from this circle to the diagonal. And it's not going to go all the way here, but it's fine. We're just going to use the straight line. But from the small circle to the diagonal on either side, like this. And I'm going to add some, I'm going to draw the full circle in dots here, so just so that you remember, just on the first one. But if you, I don't necessarily recommend drawing the full circles, it can be a bit confusing otherwise. And then from the four centers, ideally it should tangent as well. So we've had a lot of steps of three diminishing squares and then the arcs. So that's a lot of room for small movement and therefore for not tangent here. So it's okay if it's not exactly tangent, just maybe play a little bit with the placement of your compass here. It might be a little bit up or down, so you get the two tangent. And if it's not exactly tangent, it's okay, at least, especially on the first time you're drawing this. Do let me know if I need to repeat that. And then we move on to what's happening within those four inner circles, the petals that sort of end in a point. We've just added the point. And so let's have a look at the image here. And so we're not doing the thickness because that would be a bit too much trouble for one short session. But what's going on here? So we're just going to do 4 tangent circles so that we get the same sort of look of this general thing, and we're going to just stop the line where it tangents. So it's not going to look exactly the same, but it's going to be close to that. So 4 tangent circles. However, what happens here is that because of the petal shape here, because of this opening of the circle, this circle that's inside of the point of the petal is not the same size as the 3 others, because otherwise it wouldn't tangent the curve there. So we are going to have to play with that a little bit. But the 3 outer petals or circles are tangent to each other, and they're all the same size, and they're tangent to the diagonals. So we're going to first place the 3 outer circles on each petal, and then we'll take care of the inner 4th little circle. Okay. To do that, so those circles are placed on. Oh, sorry, I need to come back here. So those circles are placed on those axes that we have already here, and do I want the full? We don't need necessarily the diagonals. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to use one area here, so this circle on the top right corner, as kind of a template. I'm going to do a construction there, which is the same idea as here. So I'm going to find the corner of a square that would fit around the circle, and that will help me find a proportion for the 4 tangent circles inside, even if we draw only 3 of them. And then once we've worked the measure on one area, we can report to the others. So I'm going to take the radius of that circle on my compass. If you remember from the beginning or from other courses, the square around the circle is found by the same radius as the square, placing it on where the axes cutting the square are cutting the square. So here I'm just going to do it in one place. So I have the radius of the circle, and from this part of the diagonal, the big diagonal there, I'm going to make a little arc outside, and then the same measure, but this time from where see those 2 squares here intersect, and it should intersect on the circle there. So that's 1/4 of my circle. I have 1/4 there, and I've used each side of that quarter to make this intersection outside. Yes? And I'm just going to link that little cross there down to the center of my petal circle. And you see here, probably it should hit the arc we did earlier. there, which is quite nice. Okay. And then we're going to use the distance between the little cross outside there and the circle. So get that on your compass. And just be careful, we don't want to place that on the axis we've just drawn now here, not on my pink line. We want to place that from the the diagonals. So from the circle in on the diagonal, and then with the same radius I can switch it around and it should give me a circle that tangent my pink line. And the radius was this, was from this outer cross here to where the line cuts the circle. Okay. And so we're placing 3 circles of that size. So the first one was here, and the others are from this line here, cutting the small circle. Where it cuts the circle there, I mark in. Same thing on the other side, mark in, and then you can do your 2 circles. And it would be the same thing on the 4 other circles, because they should ideally all be same size. So you have your circle, it should have this cross inside, and you can start by the one on the angle here, and 2 on either sides like that, and then draw your circles. Here on the diagonal. No, not this. Okay, how's it going? So far, so good. Now we're going to tackle our 4th circle, and I'm sorry to say I don't have a very easy construction for this. We're going to have to use the trial and error method. So the idea is that if I placed my compass point, let me zoom in. So we're going to have to find the center and find the right radius to fit a circle that is going to tangent those two other circles there. So we want it to tangent there and to tangent the curves there, the two curves making the point of the petal. Okay? Yes, I can pause for a second. Let me know when it's all good. You're welcome. Okay. So if we were to use the same radius as those circles here to find the fourth circle, it would give me this, but this here wouldn't tangent the two curves of the point of the petal. Okay. Now if I use this here, the corner side of my smaller square or the corner of the smallest square, it would tangent the curves, but it wouldn't tangent the two other circles, so it's not what we want either. So we want something that's in between these two things here, and you want to play with sort of placing the compass. Don't press the compass, just place it carefully and check. You need to then, it's probably halfway of this is probably good. You need to check that the, yes. So I think about in the middle of the two marks. So this, sorry, let me just go back one step. I had this, the size of those small square. If I follow the same logic, I had where this circle of the petal is cut by the diagonal, and I can just mark that here. And the middle in between those two little intersections, I'm going to zoom in more, should probably be about the right center. To then increase your radius a little bit so you get to tangent curves like this. So this is what you're looking for. And I've just done it by eye to find the midpoint here. You could find a way to measure it, but it's just such a small distance that it's hard to find something that would. And I would say that you can take your radius to here, where the curve of the petal is cut by the smallest square. That would be a good place to find the radius from. And once you have it in one place here, What you can do is find a reference point. So, for instance, from the center in between of the 4 tangent circles here to the center you've just found for this new petal, so that you can just transfer that to the other. So from the same point, so you measured from the center in the middle of the 4 tangent circles to the center you found there for the final petal, and you mark that from the same location on the other quadrants. And then once you have the centers, you have to go back to the radius here. And it should fit there. I'm going to leave you a minute, but let me know if you have any questions. Oh yes. Le premier, mais pas les autres. So I'm going to answer in French, but she's asking, she said she did the first one and she cannot find how to do the others. So it's just a matter of finding the same reference point. Donc c'est une question de quand on a réussi à trouver le centre pour un des cercles, il s'agit de transférer l'information du centre sur les autres endroits et ensuite on pourra tracer le cercle. Donc là mon centre c'est ce trait orange. Donc depuis entre les 3 cercles tangents que j'avais déjà, donc l'intersection là au milieu du cercle du pétale, je m'ajuste pour trouver le centre qu'on vient de, enfin celui que vous avez trouvé, et depuis la même intersection sur les autres cercles, on marque la diagonale ici près ça va être près de l'angle du carré. Sur tous les autres endroits comme ça. Donc ça, c'est pour placer les centres de tous les cercles. Et une fois qu'on a ça, on peut revenir au premier qu'on a réussi à tracer. Et on revient au rayon. Et on utilise ce rayon sur les autres centres. Ça va? Do I need to say that in English as well? Does anyone need to go over that? Okay. Okay, we have kind of the main shape already. There are still some elements that we want to place. So there's going to be circles and the space there in between the 4 tangent circles. And we're going to have a small quatrefoil in the center to finish off. And we're going to keep the quatrefoil in the center for the end because that's the easiest. So we're going to finish with a satisfaction. And first we're going to handle what's happening there. Again, this is a question of there are ways to find tangent circles when you're like, you want to be tangent to 2 circles in a line and stuff like this. So there are math ways of doing that. I'm sort of exploring that at the moment, but here we are going to use something from the drawing that gives us something that's close enough. So it's not like a step like that's always going to work and that has necessarily a logic to it. The only logic to it is that I find the center by trial and error, and then I sort of go back from that and I find something from the drawing that aligns with that. So this is what I'm showing, so that you find something that's close enough, but it's not like this is not the math step version of this, although it does exist for some cases, maybe not all of them, I don't know. Okay, so this is where we come to why we did those ears. I call them ears. They're not ears, but the thing outside of the circle. So this is why we did that at the very beginning. And I'm going to show this first down there. I'm going to zoom a bit. And here, the first thing I'm going to do is, so the intersections here of the arc outside and the circle, my main circle, I'm going to draw a line with that. Like that. And we're going to do the same thing in the 4 quadrants. So do be careful, because the intersection sometimes it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's not a very right angle intersection, so sometimes it's good to mark it. Some people use a compass point to mark the center of those intersections for it to be easier to align. Just align that. And basically what I'm looking for here is that I want first off 2 circles that are going to be tangent to the outer circle and to my 4 tangent circles and to my vertical line. So I'm fitting a circle in this space here. So it has 3 tangent areas. So this circle here, okay? And then the same on the other side. And when I have those 2, I'm going to fit a 3rd one on top. But first we're going to find those 2. And so again, this is an approximation. This line is quite good, but the other line I think is more proximate, but we can draw it and then adjust a little bit if we need. I want to align okay, so just pay attention. We have see, when we have those small circles with 4 tangent circle, the angles inside of that, so this square here, from the big diagonals there, if I follow that line where it cuts my 2 tangent circles there, you can mark that somehow. Okay. And then mark the same thing at the top. So if you go from the diagonal, you follow the side of the square there, and you see where that hits your two circles. Okay, mark that also. And then we're going to align that vertically. And from there to there. I'm just cutting the space that's inside there. So I'm going to show it again just in case. I had the diagonals where they cut the big circle, and I follow the square that's from those diagonals, and where this line here, it cuts the two circles in this space, I mark this. And the same at the top. So from the diagonals, I go in, where does it cut the two circles there? And you can mark that, and then you line the intersections you've marked vertically like this. And then I'm going to zoom in on one. And then, so this is where probably you'll need to adjust a little bit, but possibly first try the intersections of these two lines. It's very close to the side of my square, but it's not on it, okay? And I'm first going to place the compass on this intersection here and adjust the radius to where the horizontal line is cut by the vertical. And I test that to see if it tangents the other end. It does, which is nice. It didn't on my previous test, so see how it can vary. But so in an ideal world, you get that cute little circle. And you can draw the circle in full, or you can just leave it open in a tear shape like this. So going in like this and leaving this part open, but you can draw it in full if it's easier. And it should be the same thing on the other side. And if you need to adjust, so if this measure doesn't give you the tangent for the two other, you need to, if it's too small, then you need to move your compass a bit outside to find a new center, readjust the radius, and find until the tangents. But if it's like, I don't know, 0.5 millimeter or 1 millimeter off, it's not, it's okay. We're just practicing this drawing for the first time. And then once you have something that you like, so you can still use this intersection that we found. So from the top, for example, here, I'm going to use the same intersection. But if you had a big adjustment from that, you could, because your radius is going to hit this intersection point, you can go from there and mark, oh, see, on the other side here. It's quite far away. So you can go from the midpoint, mark out with the radius that you found down there that was working. You can mark it here. depending on how you've aligned things vertically. See, this is quite a big adjustment from my line I had. And then for the two others, let me know if you have questions for that, but it's the same thing. You can, if you want to find the vertical lines like this and it's easier, you can turn your drawing to do the same thing. Mark here, 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 and then draw your verticals. Or you can just, if you manage to find a radius that you liked, that was close enough here, then you can just use the first line we did, and where it's cut by the use the horizontal line to mark the other line, and then you can use that to draw your circle. I'm going to leave you a minute to finish this, but then after we'll find the last circle in those little spaces. Let me know if you still need a little bit more time. But then again, so we're still missing a circle in this space, so tangent to the two bigger circles of the initial four tangent and the two small circles we've just found. So we want to nest a new circle in this space here. And again, something I found that seems to work close enough is to link, so the centers of the two small circles we've just found, and see my circle for the petal on the side here. I'm going to use this. So if I follow this circle where it's cut here by the diagonal, I'm marking this, and I can mark it on the other side. So circle, diagonal, and I'm going to make a cross. So from this point out there on the petal circle, and I'm linking that to, so the circle on the left, linking that to the center of the small circle on the right here. Yeah. And you can do the same on the other side just for the sake of consistency. Here. And that should give you this little intersection very close to the corner of the square there, but not quite the same. So this small intersection as a center, and then your radius should be, see where the lines cut the smaller circle we're tangent to. This should be, you can adjust a little bit, check that your tangent is okay. Okay, like that. And we don't need to do this cross on the three other. Just do it in one place. Find a center that seems to tangent well if you need to adjust a little bit. And once you worked out the center for this one area, you can I would use from the tangent point between the two circles there. I would use that as a reference. So place the compass point there and open to the center you've just found, and then you can place it to the other. So from the in-between point between the two circles, mark your symmetry axis in, that's going to be the center, and you can do this on the four corners before going back to drawing the small circles. So that's placing the centers. Yes, I can do it again. Okay, so coming back here. So if you have this cross there, it should give you this intersection. And then the radius, you can use the line here where it crosses the small circle we are being tangent to. You can use that as a radius. So that's the radius of your circle. And then the trick is transferring the center there to the other areas. And to do that, when you've done a construction like this that gives you a center, if you want to transfer it, you use a reference point that's easy to memorize for you and that you have on the four areas. So here, for instance, I used the point on this line that's cutting the two tangent circles here, and I extended my radius to the center of the circle I want to transfer. This, okay? You could use a different reference point. You could use this out there. You could, anything that you find easy. Or just choose something. So, for instance, this. Find this radius here, and then you can transfer that from the line between the two circles here to my axis going into the center. Okay, cool. And then you do that on the four, on the others. And that's transferring your center first. And once you have the centers, you'll need to go back to the radius on this one. And then you can draw the others. using that same radius. And this is 4 tangent points, so again, if it doesn't tangent everything everywhere perfectly, it's quite normal.
This is a really cool pattern, Lucy.
Okay, thanks. It was quite nice to analyze because there are some nice proportion things. Like I find like this axis giving this circle is quite nice, and weirder things such as this. But it's the principle of I know I want to place a tangent circle in a certain area, and there are various ways to doing that. We're using this, but quite a cute one. Okay, we're nearly there. We've done all the hard work now. We just have a little quatrefoil to put in the center. That's going to be the easiest quatrefoil, like the cherry on the cake, to finish off this pattern. And I'm not going to draw the circle that contains the quatrefoil because it's not on the final image. We can have a quick look at the final, in the sort of original image. Here. So we've done the little petals out there. We've done all that, and I'll put a tracing paper on top at the end and go over the final outline because it's nice. And so in the center here, here it's a bit of a weird. If you look at the stained glass here, it's a bit of a weird shape. It's not. This is when you see things are not very regular. Maybe it's been if it's been damaged or restored, or maybe it was like this originally. You can see the 4 pieces of stained glass are not exactly the same shape. It's a bit wobbly. And you could fit 4 tangent circles in there. That would be one look, but there are different proportions created by the fact that you have the thickness here. So you've got sort of the inner thing and then the outer thing going on. And I'm going to use not 4 tangent circles, but a different quatrefoil. And so we're not going to have them connecting inside parts. It's just going to be a little 4 petals like this. We could choose something different, but so what I'm going to use here. Because it's simple enough to draw, and it follows more of it's a bit hard to see here, but you can see not the inner shape of the stained glass, but more of this line, which would be the midline, kind of. This is more like a half circle situation of a quatrefoil, rather than 4 tangent. If this is all new to you, don't worry too much. But like the more you do quatrefoils and things, and eventually, I'll probably do YouTube videos about each of the quatrefoils whenever I get back to the YouTube game thing. But okay, so let me show you what I want to do here. Therefore, we're going to do this quatrefoil without the circle, because we are going to have the 4 petals tangent the 4 bigger circles, and so we're just going to use those intersection points as a reference. So I'm going to draw a little square here. So from where the 4 big circles are cut by the diagonals in this inside space, I'm going to fit a square like that. and inside of that square another square, so a diminishing square that goes from the middle of the sides of the first square. So this time it's where the sides of the square are cut by the vertical and horizontal. I use that to draw a new small square. Oh yeah, and so I should have, again, for if there are people new to Gothic geometry, when I speak about quatrefoils, or trefoils, but in here we have nothing with 3, everything is 4, pretty much. So I'm gonna write it down somewhere. I'm gonna write it in the chat. So I'm saying quatrefoil, like that. And that comes from the French and the Latin. So quatre, it means 4, and foil means leaf, basically. So it means 4 leaf. So we're doing a little 4 leafy thing in the middle. Right, and then here, from those 2 squares, from the smallest one, in the middle of the sides, where it's cut by the diagonals, that's what I'm going to use as centers for my foils. And the radius is going to be to the circle, the big 4 tangent circles on the diagonal here, so that's your radius. And you just draw a half circle there that sits outside of your square. And you can do the same thing on the 4 points. And possibly, when I practiced this earlier, this might be the same radius as this other circle out there, which is quite nice. This little quatrefoil is the same radius that the circles we drew just before. So we could have used directly this, but it's nice to see the construction. So I'm gonna grab a piece of tracing paper to put on top of that, but if you have any questions, let me know. Just gonna cut this tracing paper smaller. You don't have to do this now, or you don't have to do it at all. This is just a final step I like to sort of extract the final pattern from the construction lines and to see it more clearly. And I just paste the tracing paper on top. And now that we've done all the hard work of the construction, I just go over just the final portions of the line. So this, to do this, you need a bit of focus to not just overdraw parts that you don't need. So if you're feeling a little tired now, maybe just keep that for later. Yeah, and I'm going to do it now. You can try and do it on your own, or you can use the recording later on if you need. Just my trick in general for doing this final outline on the tracing paper is to start by the hardest part, so, or the smallest detail, so that makes it less likely that you're going to overdraw. So for instance, here, the risky part, for example, would be those petal with a point here. You don't want to draw the full circle containing the 4 others, because if you draw the full circle, you're cutting the point of the petal, and you don't want to do that. So a good way to avoid that is to start with this little circle in here and draw that one, stopping at the tangent. And so once you have that in, you're less likely to cut it when you draw the other circle. So sometimes starting by the sort of more details is what helps drawing only what you need. And feel free to ask questions if you want while I do this. So we have all the centers basically already. If you're struggling to see them, just take a minute being like, I want to draw those 4 circles, where are the centers? And once you identify them, then you can go ahead and trace them. Ah yes, the overlapping tangent. It's because there are a lot of steps, so there are a lot of room for inaccuracies, so it would be worth sort of doing it again, because once you've drawn it once and you know a little bit more what you're looking for, kind of where you're going at, it might get easier. And just take your time when you do it, trying to really be precise when you align things. Maybe sometimes when we follow an online course, we rush a little bit to follow the steps, and we lose a little bit in accuracy. So it's not such an easy pattern. I was excited to show it to you, and I thought it was a nice one to start over after the summer. Feels like it's before the fall and back to work and everything. Although probably a lot of people haven't stopped work for the summer. But yeah, so it's not, and I wouldn't consider that such an easy pattern. It's a nice one, but yeah. If you're starting off with this, be aware this is not the easiest pattern. It's weird. Okay. And with tangent, maybe A2 could help, yes, sometimes. But yeah, finding your own rhythm. And the trick is really to get used to how to adjust the placement of the centers for the tangent. Because like I adjust all the time. This is how I stay precise. You know, I wouldn't be like, if this intersection doesn't give me the tangent I want, well, that's what I have, I'm gonna stick with it. I adjust. I know it's not easy to adjust the centers and radius. It takes a bit of practice and skill. But I think it's one of the only ways to be really precise with those tangent circles, because it's impossible to draw it precisely. You know, exactly precisely from the first try. Or maybe it is possible, and I'm just not that precise. Oh, I'm missing a circle here. You could also do this step that I'm doing with a compass right now. You could also do it freehand if you feel comfortable drawing curves without a compass, just freehand. It, you know, make it easier to connect things. Doesn't have to be for a final piece. It could be, but it can also be just like a way of practicing and finding the final motifs, and sort of seeing the things more clearly. So it's also a good practice. All right. If I lift my tracing paper, that's how it looks like. And this pattern is all curve, except we have a little portion of straight line here to connect the two tangent curves here and the circle. So just using the ruler for those tiny segments here. I really want to try a version with with like different levels in the tracery as well at some point. But I think this was enough food for today. Okay. How did it go?
This one is definitely going to need a redraw, but it's very cool.
Yeah, I do hope you guys enjoyed it, even if it's not an easy one with all the tangents. But yeah, it is a fun pattern to draw. I don't even remember where it's from. I think the image I had put in the chat, the name of the image says Santa Maria Galdacano, something. Yeah, the remembering part. I know for the it's nice with the construction line as well. So for the Geometry Cafe, I don't do a handout. I do handouts in my bigger courses, but it takes a lot of time and to do. And for the Geometry Cafe sessions, I usually do things a little bit simpler than this, so it doesn't really need a handout. But you'll have the recording to replay. But what I am going to do is I'm going to scan my paper, so you can have that. I'll send it somehow. So I'll scan my version. So if you need to compare, and then you can add your notes to it and try and redraw it with the recording.
If you wanted to add the thickness, could you just do a line on the inside of everything we've done? It
No.
seems like if you would that work?
Hang on. In line, no, because when you that never really works unless on a
Ugh.
very small pattern. Because here, let me show you where it doesn't work. Well, you could try it, but like if I do an inner line here and an inner line on this shape, it's gonna end up being a double line anyways. See? But what could be the way of seeing it is that rather than thinking, it could work in the sense that you could do an inner line to each shape. So the tier shape here could have an inner line. The circles there could have inner lines like this. Could have an inner to the quatrefoil, an inner to the tier shapes. That could work.
Okay.
But just be aware that here would end up double. So depending on, colors and
Right.
yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, great. You're welcome, Maureen. I don't know yet what we'll do next month. I think I have the date somewhere. I'll send a message soon. I think I've worked out all the dates until December, so I can announce them. And we'll figure out what we do in the next ones. Let me know if there are topics that you would like, and if you want to redo an analysis session or anything, and then we'll see. Otherwise, I'll find something. Anyways, okay. Well, when will the recording be posted? I am going to try tonight, and if it doesn't work tonight, it will be tomorrow. It's just I have a slow internet connection, so uploading takes forever. Yes, and it will be. I'll send an email with the link, and it will be available from your on the Buy Me a Coffee page. I think usually you can access the different sections, so we'll be in the recording section there, so you can have a look at all the past recordings in that. Okay. Have a good day, good evening.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you around. Bonne soirée.